receive it like every other Nigerian. I've also seen people calling me, congratulating me, offering positive comments on some of the work we did to at least invite Nigerians to pressure Nigerian government to do what they did. I also did receive positive reviews on social media, and but that was not necessarily a watershed moment for me because I know Nigerians have it in us that we have the capacity to engage the government. In fact, when I received the news, I was just sad that the conversations we are having around the census, that we could have had similar conversations around the elections. Remember, the elections that some of us started raising awareness as to the internal and external compromise between INEC. Within INEC, we pointed to sensitive data. We also shared credible intel with stakeholders who could take action. Unfortunately, they didn't take action, and here we are discussing the 2023 elections and all of the things that happened in that elections. So yes, I'm gratified that the federal government finally yielded to pressure to postpone the census. But like I mentioned in another interview, the postponement is only one out of the many issues around the census. Make no mistake, we don't have issue with the dates, so to speak. The issues we had with the dates had to do with the timing. But now, if you have dealt with the timing by postponing the election or the census rather, then you're going to be dealing with untested systems and processes. For instance, you're going to be dealing with the human capacity questions around the NPC. You're going to be dealing with questions around the laws governing the exercise. I believe that Section 213 of the Constitution will not allow Nigerians to have a credible census. That is why we must engage the next session of the National Assembly to amend specifically Section 213. We also have to amend the 2004 Electoral Act. We also have to update the 2019 guideline of NPC, and then we also have to update the internal regulations and guidelines of NPC. So those four documents need to be worked on. Then after that, you're also going to be dealing with issues around the people living in IDP camps. As you would know, many people in parts of where we call now the Middle Belt, or if you want to be politically correct, the North Central, uh, um, have been attacked by invaders. The media unfortunately keeps reporting these issues as farmer header crisis, but it's beyond that. What is happening is that people attack villages, people run people there out of town, burn their houses, and then people move into IDP camps or neighboring countries. As of today, there are 70,000 of those who are living in IDP camps in Cameroon. There are people who are living in IDP camps scattered in parts of Benue State, which I have visited and seen some of these people. There are people who are living in IDP camp here in Nasarawa State. So these issues are there, and the NPC is planning to count them as IDPs, whereas the people that ran them out of town now live in their villages. So it's not as if it's a hit and run. So people attack people, and then some other settlers come and settle and take over their houses. Now, an NPC is going into those enclaves to count those people, to enumerate them. And remember, it's a housing and population census. So those people are going to be claiming houses and possibly lands that does not belong to them. So those issues will have to satisfactorily addressed before Nigerians can hope for a credible census. So yes, I'm encouraged that we have achieved the first leg of the feat, which is to extend or postpone the census exercise, but more work needs to be done before Nigerians can have a credible census exercise.
Okay. Okay. So let's look at the reason which was a book by MPC. MPC was saying that it was the mood in the country, and then the government transition that brought about this very postponement, that they want to allow the mood to settle, and then the incoming government cannot take up this responsibility of conducting this very census. Um, how tenable is this very reason, or you think there is more than the NPC has stated?
Well, the mood is a credible issue. It's a credible question. If you had done your threat level assessment or your risk assessment, you will know that it's unsafe for the NPC to operate in Nigeria. I made this case on your platform the last time I was here. I asked you, for instance, to close your eyes for a minute and imagine what might happen in Lagos. where people who were flogged out of their polling units just a few short weeks ago, who were stopped from voting just because they looked Igbo, and then you come back to knock on their doors and you want to enumerate them as part of that Lagos population, whereas the court cases, the election petition is dragging on. Go to, for instance, in Adamawa, and then also go to Nasarawa, and then also go to Benue. Will you be counting people in IDP counts, villages that have continued to receive attacks upon attacks without government support? All of a sudden, you brought ballot papers to them, and then all of a sudden, you also bringing back enumerators to them. So, if you had done that, it was basic to know that the country cannot sustain a major national exercise. First is that the country is eagerly anticipating the final conclusion of the election petition, and then there is a transition that is ongoing, and then there is the election season that usually comes with religious and ethnic talking points, and this particular season is so heated by the conversations around ethnicity, especially in Lagos, conversations around religious imbalance in the tickets, conversations around so those conversations are there and they are heated. And then even after the elections, especially when you talk about Bola Ahmed Tinubu's handlers, they have continued to harp on ethnic tensions, especially Bayo Onanuga, who continues to stoke ethnic. So while those ethnic flames are being stoked, and while the president has not been inaugurated, and while there is no attempt to heal the nation, and then you go on to conduct a major national exercise, it is bound to, it's first of all an uncontrollable experiment, and nobody will know how that experiment would have turned out. So that's a credible reason to have. But the excuses giving is also just one half of the truth. The other half of the truth is that Nigeria lacks the capacity, and I did say it 2 days before, a day before they postponed, that the NPC lacks the capacity to conduct exercise on May 3. As at the time they conducted their exercise, they decided to postpone the exercise. They have not received the amount of funding they claim they need. We are aware that they have not received all the devices they needed for the census. It's just like INEC conducting elections with incomplete BVAS devices. So they have not received the full batch of the devices they needed. As at the time they postponed, just 4 or 5 days before the census, they had not installed the software on the hardware that was brought. Not all of them had completed the installations, right? Because you have to manually install in all of the devices. And remember, you are dealing with about 800 devices now, 800,000 devices. Now, you have to manually install. And then after installation, you have to send them in batches to different states. And then when different states receive, you don't have to do onward deployment to local government. Leave the devices alone and now focus on the human capital. Even the men and the women who will do this work had not been recruited. The issues around ad hoc staff recruitment was a mess. And then even those who would say that they have been recruited don't even know that they have been successfully recruited. The issues around training had not been done. Training of supervisors had not been done. So we knew that NPC did not have the capacity to conduct the elections. But the thing that goes on with Nigeria is that even with that our knowledge, if you did not do anything, they could go ahead and conduct the census even with all the limited capacity they have. A case in point is what happened on February 25th with INEC. We were warning credibly, and again, I think I mentioned it on your platform again. We were saying everything that INEC devices had to be subjected to integrity tests. That was what we said on the surface. But internally, I know we exchanged memos with a lot of people who could have taken action. We told them that INEC does not have the capacity to conduct credible elections. Why do we keep saying this? On February 25th, the day of the presidential elections, by 14 minutes past 2, INEC was recruiting ad hoc staff. INEC was sending text messages to people to come to the state office in Oka, where they did crash orientation course for them and then sent them out in the field to become ward collation and local government collation agents. So you are preparing an election, and if before the election, the people who will serve as ward collation agents have not been known, they have not been trained, and you are hoping that INEC will turn out impressive election. And we share this credible intel with people. I'm going to say one thing on your platform, and I'm not afraid of saying this. We knew and we said that INEC advertised a software called ABIS, Automated Biometric Identification System. And they said that that system is an intelligence system where they passed the credentials of all registrants, and that system automatically detected fake registrants, underage registrants, and double registrants, and weeded them out. So much so that Nigerians now had 2.78 million Nigerians that, according to them, the abyss invalidated their registrations. And when we made our investigations, we said to people who could act, look, INEC does not have any abyss. And I'm saying it on your platform, and INEC can come out to deny. There is no abyss. They did not acquire any software. They did not acquire any system. What happened was that INEC sent one particular person on a trip to Israel and took the registration data of Nigerians on a hard drive and traveled to Israel. And the person spent some days in Israel and came back and told INEC that they had cleaned up the data. That was why they uploaded it on their website. And then after the upload, Nigerians saw that the abyss was not there, that the abyss was not any intelligent software. And so we share this credible intel with people and saying, look, they're telling you that the software is there. The software is not, they don't have any system. Now, how can you verify? Go and subject those systems to integrity tests. Let them bring the system. Let us see it in the first place. So we said a lot of these things. These things are known before the elections. And so we warned about the beavers, we warned about the IREV, we warned about these things, and Nigerians did not take it seriously. That was why we continued to double down on what we knew about the NPC, because not only do we know that they are not ready, but that if you allow them, that they will continue to carry on the exercise even while it is obvious that they are not ready. And that's why I'm gratified that Ohaneze did not take action. The Christian Association of Nigeria did not take action. But I'm gratified that Afenifere took action. And I'm gratified that the Biduba Forum took action. And I'm gratified that there are a lot of Nigerians, including Victor Patola, including there are about 3 or 4 court cases I know of against the NPC. One was from Victor Patola, who was making the case in High Court in Abuja that INEC was not ready for the exercise, that INEC was severely underfunded for the exercise. And then you have Barrister Ogene, Abba Ogene, who was making 2 cases, one to a court in Abuja and one to a court in Benue, that the NPC will fundamentally breach the rights of IDPs if they continue to count. So I'm aware that there are a lot of people, and then I'm also aware of some of the things that will not be discussed on the surface, some of the waters that passed under the bridge for that announcement to be made. So I am happy that Nigerians, for once, took a careful note of the alarms we raised and acted on them. And then let me repeat again, that had we acted on the information that was shared before the elections, the Nigerians would have had a better outcome compared to what was fraudulently, in my view, declared about the outcome of the elections.
Okay, so for what you have said, you mean that there were things that made the census impracticable?
Yes, that's correct. It was impracticable. There was no way they could have gone ahead with the census. It was a no-brainer. It was nearly impossible. It was not nearly. It is impossible for NPC to conduct any exercise on May 3, whereas they have not received the devices. I mean, look at the efforts you will need to install software on 800,000 devices. And as at the time you are 5 days away from the election, the devices have not even been brought completely. Now, you need 10 days. I have seen the training manual. I think the training manual is about the 214-page document or so. I need to be sure. I have seen the training manual, and I have a copy of it, of the supposed training manual for ad hoc staff who will be doing the census. You need at least 10 days to train the people on that manual for them to even know. And then you remember that there are a series of questions. I think there are about more than 40 questions or so they are going to be asking you. They want to know whether you have air conditioner. They want to know whether you have TV. They want to know how many toilets you have. They are looking at fertility rate for women. They're looking at the kind of house you live in, whether it's a mud house, whether it's a brick house, whether your roofing is corrugated. They're looking at a whole lot of things. And then so the enormity of the training and the quality of the training you will give those data collectors or the field officers, you need at least 10 days, at least by NPC's own admission. They say that they need at least 10 days to train their officials. As at 5 days to the census, they have not started the training. And so what magic are they going to do? So we knew it was practically impossible. That the only possible explanation is that if they had gone ahead to do the census, that what they would do is fictitious manufacture of numbers. And the problem with fictitious manufacture of numbers is that once it happens and officially gazetted, the only thing you can do is complain. Just like people will tell you go to court. In the case of the NPC, according to the laws governing the exercise, there's limited legal redress you can get after the deed has been done. That is why all effort you have to put in is to make sure that the exercise turns out credible. But once you fail at that, then you may have to wait for 10, 15, or 20 years before you get another opportunity to correct the injustice.
Okay, before that very quick postponement, apart from NBC, always telling us how committed they are towards conducting a credible census for Nigeria, a digital one for that very matter for the first time in history of Nigeria. The NBC said that he has put a methodology in place to conduct accurate and reliable census. Now, he talks about completing the numeration area of the country, conducted the first and second take test, then recruited ad hoc staff, began the training, procured personal digital assistant and IT infrastructure. These are the things that NPC said that they wanted to do before that very postponement. So, do you in any way think that the NPC recorded from James or in the preparation for the census that it needs to be consolidated whenever we plan to go again with this very census?
Yes, to be fair, there has been some level of appreciable progress made, right? I will have to give it to them that they have done, quite what they can do, even within the limited error that is the system. And then if you begin to look at the NPC, for instance, the chairman of the NPC, Isakwara, was not supposed to be the chairman. There was someone who was appointed, and then a day after his appointment was withdrawn, and Isakwara was brought in from nowhere to become the NPC chairman. And then if you go back to what happened with INEC, where it was after the fact that Nigerians knew that indeed the person who designed the abyss, the beavers, and the rest, that, not the abyss rather, the beavers and the IRF, that the person was deployed out of the unit where he could function and was sent to become administrative secretary in Enugu unit of INEC. And because of that redeployment, you saw a lot of things happening in the system. And we're saying to people today, you have to pay attention to the deployments even within the NPC. The commissioners, how were they appointed? The chairman of that commission, how was he appointed? And then the contracting, how were they done? Because it is individuals that are designing the software. It is individuals that are supplying the equipment. It is the individuals that, they are human beings. And then the more you look at those appointments, the more you look at the contracting within the NPC, the more you look at the people they are giving such contracts, the more you look at everything, the more you see why there's a theory I'm working on today, frankly. And that theory is that Nigeria is now a post-trust society. And Nigerians have not, unfortunately, learned how to navigate in a post-trust society. What do I mean by a post-trust society? A post-trust society is one in which a fundamental ingredient of cohesion, which is trust, has fundamentally broken down. You see it in your tailor. That, for instance, you say to your tailor, I have a wedding next weekend. And then when you get there next weekend, your clothes are not ready. You can't even give your mechanic, depending on your relationship with the person, your car to fix in your absence. You must have to be there to police him or her. And that gave rise to the effort of them trying to show you a spoiled or replaced part in order to convince you that something was actually wrong with your vehicle and that they had done something to fix it. Same thing with your tailor, your seamstress. In fact, even medical doctors today, you can no longer trust them even. That you have to police them to know what drugs they are giving you in Nigeria. And then from you have a fundamental trust that even when the traffic light says go, you cannot even trust the traffic light in Nigeria. Like in my own experience in Enugu, where I waited for the traffic light, and as soon as it passed me, as I was about to drive on, someone who was running against the traffic almost smashed me. And so you cannot even trust the traffic light. That even if you know that the traffic light has said go, you must have to look out for those people who will not obey the traffic. So when you have a system that you cannot trust, you don't trust the judiciary, you don't trust the police, you don't trust INEC, you don't trust NPC. How do you navigate? That's the issue. And so Nigerians have learned how to navigate in their private dealings. That's why they police their tailors. If you have a wedding next 2 weekends, you might want to tell your teller that it's this weekend. You might want to be calling him every day. You might want to sit on him to make sure that your clothes are delivered. Even if you go to have a haircut, your eyes must be permanently on the mirror to be able to police the haircut guy, not to give you something that is not your usual haircut style, right? And then your mechanic, you have to be there. In fact, when they are buying parts, you may even have to go there to buy the part. In fact, sometimes they have to write out the parts for you to go and buy because you want to police them to be sure that they give you the very best you can get. That is the same way you police institutions. So you don't just take. Yes, please go ahead.
Now that the census has been postponed, now we're talking about what is next, especially for the president-elect Bola Tinubu, whom the buck has been shifted to. Then the NPC itself that I talked about, its preparedness, the state, and even the Nigerians. So what is next for everyone?
Is to police the NPC and the new president, whoever he or she will be. Because I am aware that there are petitions going on in the Election Petition Tribunal. I am also aware that the Supreme Court had not made their pronouncement. Until that pronouncement is made, Nigerians may not have known necessarily who will eventually be their president. That is my own view of the matter, except of course if people already know what the Supreme Court will decide. But in the absence of that, I believe that whoever will assume the leadership of Nigeria and then the NPC, the Nigerians have an ultimate responsibility to police them. To say, if you have acquired GPS devices, if you have done your geo mapping, if you have done your, all of those claims they have made, if you have done all of these things, can we subject them to integrity tests so that we can see that you have indeed done what you've said you've done? The same way you have your mechanic, if you said that you have changed my carburetor, for instance, I want to see that you have done that. That is the same way, if NPC is saying that they have acquired devices, can we see the devices? Not just seeing it with physical eyes, because what I'm calling for is not a PR stunt. What we're dealing with is integrity tests. Can we subject these systems to test to determine two things? One, their susceptibility to external compromise, especially within the framework that there has been this allegation that there were external compromises about hacking of the server and the rest. So can we test these systems to determine their susceptibility to external compromise? Then can we also test the system to determine their susceptibility to internal compromise too? Because if you give a system that can be compromised to enumerators, then whether they are induced or coerced, it is only fair to assume that they will manipulate the system. So you have to subject those systems to tests to determine the level of influence the individuals operating the system can have on the system. And then where you determine that there are several leakages, then you have to plug the leakages before you can go into credible exercise. So it is ultimately left for Nigerians to determine, not even left for Buhari or Tinubu or whoever eventually becomes Nigeria's president or the NPC. It is Nigerians that will demand the kind of census they want. And let me end with this, frankly. I believe fundamentally that democracy operates a give and take economy. It operates a demand and supply economy. If you don't demand good governance, for instance, good governance will not be supplied. What Nigerians believe is that they want to vote and they want to go and sleep and then they want miraculously for good governance to happen. No, it doesn't work that way. Anywhere you see democracy working, it is people working it. Whether it's in France today, where you are aware that they are continuing, even with the development of France, you would say that people are continuing to protest, even as we speak in France. In the UK, people are continuing to vote. Even with the living condition there, people are still protesting that it's not well enough for them. So you have these people demanding and insisting that democracy works for them. So I want Nigerians to demand for a credible census. If Nigerians don't demand for a credible census, if they go home and sleep or just stay in their houses and nag, then NPC can hit us with another sledgehammer that will even be much worse than what INEC hit us with.
Okay, I read an article read by Simon Kolawole where he argued that no matter the outcome of the next census, whether it's conducted by President Buhari or another president, that the figures or the outcome will still be disputed, because he made a case saying that there are some demographic markers that have been removed from what is going to be, the question that we are going to be asked. Things like religion and the ethnicity that we are excluded from, and what could be asked of the people to is being postponed. So even if another person comes to conduct this very census, can there be a time that the census will be held or will be conducted and the outcome will not be followed by controversies and figure disputations?
Well, The controversies and the disputations around the census is because the whole ecosystem around the census is designed to fail. If you look at Section 213 of Nigeria's constitution, for instance, you will see why census cannot be credible. So therefore, we are saying that Nigerians must prevail on the next session of the National Assembly to quickly amend Section 213 of the Constitution before we can have a credible census. Not just that, there are contentious issues around the 2004 NPC Act that has to be upgraded too. And then the 2019 population policy has to be upgraded. Then the internal guidelines of an NPC has to be upgraded too. And then some of those other things that we've been calling for. For instance, if you have a system and a process that has passed through multi layers of integrity tests and all the stakeholders who are going to dispute the system, and by the way, why can't the stakeholders decide what they want to measure? If Nigerians want to measure, for instance, ethnicity, let them speak up and insist that ethnicity will be measured. If they want to measure things like religion, I don't think they are important because you know that my allegiance is to good governance. But if others find them important, then let us insist and include it in one of the things that will be measured, right? So let us, the stakeholders, have all the disagreements before the exercise. That is the goal. If we can all come together, let Arewa Consultative Forum nominate their agents. Let the Ohanese Ndibo, let Christian Association of Nigeria, let Murik, let Pandef, let Middle Belt Forum, let all these individual Nigerian, let all Nigerians groups in their clusters, because not all Nigerians will go there to interrogate the systems, but let these representative groups or anybody, or even the Southeast Governors Forum, for instance, the South-South Governors Forum, or even the Southeast Caucus of the National Assembly, let us find a thing, a melting pot, where we can congregate and decide on the modalities that will be acceptable to all. Then when we have designed that modalities, we can fight over it, we can hit each other on the head over it, and then once we have agreed on the modalities and everybody is fairly satisfied, then we can go ahead and conduct the census. The thing that happens is that even before the exercise, the stakeholders are not allowed to make inputs. People who have disputations are not allowed to bring up their disputations. Take a minute to look at what happened with the declaration of February 25th, where people are disputing that INEC is in breach of its own guidelines, and the haughty attitude was go to court. So if you continue that go to court attitude with the census, then people are going to be fighting about the outcome. But if you have allowed all the critical stakeholders to bear their minds on the issue, fight over it, and then agree on a consensus that works, I believe census is not a rocket science, for instance. It's not. There are countries even poorer than Nigeria, even much more diverse than Nigeria, much more steeped in conflict than Nigeria, that have conducted credible census exercise, and there are several examples. So if Nigerians want, and I'm not saying it is the left or the government, the problem is not necessarily, in my view, with the government. The problem is necessarily with the individuals, because if we, like I've mentioned before, don't demand for a credible census, it will not happen. So I'm expecting the stakeholders not to go and sleep. That's why when people call me to congratulate me, oh, you've won, I said, won what? We have not. Until we get a credible census, then the job has not been done. That's why we are continuing with the advocacy that the issues around the census will have to be addressed. I agree with Simon Kolawole that if you conduct the census within the current census ecosystem, regardless of whoever is the president, that it will still turn out. So that's why we have to intentionally redesign the census ecosystem.
So now, I want to know if there's any way we can insulate population census from politics, because if you look at the way our politics is structured, you know that apart from the fact that population census is used for national planning, in our own case, it's also used for political purpose. Take, for instance, apart from the census figure being partly used in determining how we get to share our federal allocation, the issue about delineation of federal constituencies, then population census also plays a role in this very one. You talk about the number of seats that a state legislature can have. Population census also plays a part in this. So you can see that apart from the planning, population census figure is tied to politics. So is there a way we can insulate the figure away from politics?
Well, you would know that I'm a proponent of restructuring That's why, for instance, I don't like the feeding bottle structure we operate in. But as at today, 30% of Nigeria's resources are shared predicated on census numbers or on population. 30%. You see, you have a national pie at 100%. There is the, there are, if you go to the constitution, you will see how it is shared. There is the sharing based on who produces what, but 30% on census numbers. So that enough is enough motivation. That alone, rather, is enough motivation for political actors to do all they can to artificially inflate their numbers in a bid to get more resources allocated to them. However, you cannot entirely, in my view, again, I have not ruminated over it for quite a while to have an informed opinion on it. But it is not just in Nigeria that people rely on census for planning. People, you rely on census for because if you're going to be building schools, for instance, or citing projects, for instance, you have to look at the numbers to know how you cite projects. So it's not just in Nigeria, it is a standard practice worldwide, because you need those demographic markers to be able to inform government policies. So in that case, yes. And then if you talk about delineation of maybe decision to create additional polling units, decision to create additional states, decision to create additional maybe state house of assembly constituency, decision to create maybe federal senate constituencies, senatorial zones. So those ones are there. And again, there is no how you can divorce census numbers from that. However, the controversial issue around Nigeria's census is that Nigeria operates these mythical numbers that cannot be justified anywhere. I don't believe that Nigeria has had any credible census before now. And that's why you see that before you sustain any lie, that you must have to keep lying to sustain that lie. I don't believe that Nigeria is 200 or 250 million. Or where are these people, you ask? Where are they? If you say that they are in the north, I've traveled quite far and wide. In less than 1 week, it's been less than that I came back from my tour of a particular state in the north, right? And where are the people, you will ask yourself? If you claim that XYZ state has XYZ million population, where are they? And so, because there has been this propensity to dominate the political arena, the propensity to take the lion's share when it comes to political, there has been that region in Nigeria that wants to keep artificially inflating their census numbers, right? And that region is well known. And again, if you look at the conversations around the beavers, people are saying perhaps the beavers has helped us to know the real population in Nigeria, because of you didn't have those KKK states again, trying to wipe up the votes of other regions. So in the real sense of it, if a credible data backed and maybe tech relied census is done, we will know the actual population. So whether or not you are going to use that population to share resources, whether or not you're going to use that resource to create additional polling units, is left for you. But let us have a credible head count in the first place. So I don't think you can divorce politics from numbers. I don't think it's practicable. But what I think we can insist on is to get a credible census. Even if the north is more populous than the rest of the country, let it be credible. Even if Kanu, for instance, is 100 million, no problem, but let it be credible. Right? And then the issue around border management is also a problem, because and border management, identity management, if you've been to some parts of Nigeria, you will know that there is a thin line between Cameroon, Chad, Niger, and Nigeria, that sometimes it is difficult to say who a Nigerian is and who a Nigerian is, to say who a Chadian is and who a Nigerian is. So there were reports during the registration, continuous voter registration exercise, that there are foreign elements who are obtaining their PVCs. And so today, we don't even know how porous or how the border arrangement will be, or the identity management will be. That is why, in fact, one of the key things we are pushing for is for the census to incorporate biometrics. So you must supply the fingerprints and the facials, the details of your population. Don't just come into a house and the father will claim that he has 30 children. No, we want all those 30 children, we want to have their, even for identity management and securitization of the country, you need those things. And so that's why I also think that the NPC may have to work in tandem with the NIMC, right, to see how we can partner, those two organizations can partner to get us something close to a credible exercise. Because I'm aware that NIMSI has a credible and robust database where all Nigerians who had done their NIN can supply their details. Those who have not been able to do their NIN, as you are doing the enumeration, you can do their NIN, so that if you say that a state has a population of 200 million, we can see the data, the pictures, the fingerprints, and the biometrics of those populations. So those are some of the ways we can improve the census ecosystem, in my view.
Okay. Thank you, Chima, for speaking with us this morning on the postponement of the 2023 housing and the population census. We appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you so very much for having me. Thank you.
All right. So the phone lines open for you to join this very company.
So thank you for listening. That was Franklin Ebuka of Ogene FM in Enugwu-ukwu, Anambra State, who I've been speaking with concerning the census. And we discussed issues around the postponement of the census. Why was it postponed? Is it a win? What can we do to ensure a credible exercise? And thank you for staying online to watch the video. I also thank those who will see this video at a later date. My name is Chima Christian, and it's my fundamental belief that Africa's morning will come. Thank you.